Hey, good morning, everyone. I hope that you are all well. Apologies that we're starting slightly earlier than usual, but on Thursdays, as many of you are aware, I have a commitment, so I'm not able to be at my desk. So that's why we're starting early. Good morning to Peter, to David, to Caroline, to Clarice, and all of those that are still joining us. So today is the Yortzeit of the Noam Elimelech. The Noam Elimelech, Reb Elimelech of Lezhensk, and some of you may recall that name because when we were on our trip to Poland, we actually visited the grave of that great Hasidic master. It's also Pasha's Shemini, which is about the laws of kashrut. So perhaps let me just say a pot puree of a couple of ideas and thoughts in the limited time that we have this morning. Today's learning is dedicated in memory of the late Ruth Tunkel, Rivka Leah, Basra of Rom, as well as all of those whose Yortzeit falls today and those that are saying Kaddish during the course of the year. Last night was wonderful, absolutely, truly memorable. In the lifetime of Woodside Park, a Sefer Torah was completed, and we look forward to celebrating as a community on Shabbat. I would encourage you, I would really ask you to come to Shul and just to be part of a simcha, your simcha, my simcha, our simcha as a community. These moments are few and far between, and it's really what lifts our spirits to come together and to be able to celebrate what it means to be Jewish. So the first point to say is when we think about kosher, if I was to say, I don't know if you ever remember the Lord Sugar, that famous moment on The Apprentice where he sent one of his, he sent some of the would-be apprentices to find various objects in the marketplace, and they had to find a kosher chicken. And basically this Jewish young man didn't know head to tail what a kosher chicken was. He thought it was maybe halal. He really didn't know, which was exceptionally sad as well as rather comical. But kosher doesn't just refer to what we eat. We seem to think that what is kosher, what's not kosher is all about what we imbibe, what we eat. But the truth is, we're meant to be, we speak about a person being an Odom kosher, a kosher person. We speak about a mezuzah being kosher, tefillin being kosher, Sefer Torah being kosher. Yeah, so the whole of our lives are meant to be kosher. They're meant to be, kosher means fit, suitable. And therefore, we're meant to make sure that we live kosher lives in the way that we live, the way that we behave, the way that we interact with others. And we don't always choose, we can't always choose the situation that we find ourselves in. So really it's a matter of ensuring that whatever situation we may find ourselves in, we are able to behave appropriately. So this leads us nicely into the story, the famous story of the Rav Elimelech of Luzhensk, whose Yortzeit today, and his brother. And they were both, in those days, it was going back a few centuries. So, it was the Jews were very much down and out and persecuted, and there were always trumped up charges, and they found themselves arrested on, absolutely ridiculous charges, and they were thrown into jail. And they were thrown into jail with, all the other villains and thieves, of the town. And they were rather dejected. And what in particular led to Reb Elimelech being dejected was the fact that I think it was him, he saw that in the middle of the room was a sluice bucket for the uninitiated. Is in a prison cell is what the prisoners use to excuse themselves. And what was upsetting him so much is that in Jewish law, if you have something which is disgusting, something which is leaves a bad smell, then or human excretions, then you're not, or even animal excretions, you're not allowed to say divrei Torah. You're not allowed to pray in such a space because it's not considered fitting So, and therefore they became rather dejected. What could they do? They weren't allowed to, they couldn't serve God, they felt, in any way, couldn't pray, couldn't learn, couldn't do anything. And therefore they felt, he felt rather downtrodden. They were in this place, they had no idea how long they were going to be. And there was nothing that they could do in terms of service of God, which was their whole purpose of life. And after a while, his brother came to him, or it was the other way around, but they had this conversation where they said to each other, and this is something really to hold on to, friends, for the course of your lives. We may not be able to pray. We may not be able to learn. We can't do any mitzvah when we've got the sluice bucket. But if that's the position that we find ourselves in, then God wants us to serve him without doing the mitzvah, without learning, without praying, without being able to do anything. That is the service of God. And they got up and they started to dance with great excitement and fervor around the sluice bucket, because they recognized that that was what God had wanted from them. There was nothing else they could do. And there was the prison guard heard this commotion coming from the prison cell. They're meant to be all downtrodden and and dejected, and he heard this commotion. And a long story short, he came in and he said to the other prisoners, he says, "What are these? What are these Michiganer Jews doing? Why is it that they're so jovial and happy and on a high?" They said, "We don't know what's going on." They came in upset, but then they saw the sluice bucket, started to dance around it, and that seems to be what they're doing, celebrating around the sluice bucket. The prison guard said, "If that's what's making them happy, they're not going to have the sluice bucket." And he took it out. And of course, then they were able, without that barrier, they were able to learn, they were able to daven, they were able to do everything. Now, that is one version of the story. In other words, that things worked out. They had faith and things worked out exactly the way they would want. Probably the truer version is that it didn't work out. The sluice bucket stayed in that prison cell, and therefore they had to make the best of a bad situations. They had to have faith. It's easy to say one has faith when everything's going well. When you're riding on a high, you're on cloud nine, you've got your simcha, you've got your family around you. It's much harder when you're in a place of darkness, when we don't have the family, when we're in lockdown, when we're struggling, when we've got setbacks. That is the lesson for us from the Yortzeit of the Noam Elimelech, Reb Elimelech of Luzhensk. The lesson is quite clear, that whatever situation we find ourselves in, if we are positioned in a certain way, that must be what we are meant to deal and grapple with in our daily lives. And I personally struggle with this, because there are days where I turn around and I say, that's not exactly the way I intended today to go. I thought I was going to be able to have time to be a creative, to be dynamic, to be able to share ideas with the community. And one thing after another came up. But then I turn around to myself and I think about this story and I say to myself, if that's what happened, that's the position that the Almighty put me in. We say the binding of Isaac, that the ram that was found afterwards, it wasn't that Abraham found that ram, it was that ram was positioned there for Abraham to find. We never find ourselves in a situation. We are positioned either by ourselves directly or by others, but it's what God wants. And therefore, please God, we should be able to have the faith and fortitude, like Rav Noam Elimelech, whose Yortzeit is today, to always be able to maintain our faith and to be able to live faithful lives, fulfilling lives, full lives, and in that way, please God, only good things in the year ahead. Sorry, apologies for starting earlier. We need to adjust the poster. On Thursdays, we need to start at 10 to 9. But until tomorrow, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and then look forward to seeing everyone on Shabbat morning, 10 a.m. Sefer Torah procession. Have a great day. Keep well, keep safe. All the very